Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining the Florida Food Policy Council's monthly Florida Food Forum, hosted by the Policy Committee of the Council. I am Dell deChant, and I welcome everyone. We're glad that you're joining us today, whether on a cyber system or phone lines, and we certainly welcome all who are accessing this program in the future through the magic of a recording of today's event. And I do note that all of our Florida Food Forums are posted on the Florida Food Policy Council's website, which is great for reference and also for calling attention to the good work that's being done here. Our topic for this month is Building Bridges, Bettering Florida's Food System Together. With us from the Council is the Council's Operations and Communication Manager, Kendra Love. Kendra will handle the technical and managerial aspects of our meeting. And I'm asking Kendra to let us all know when we have 5 minutes left in the program. We're also asking viewers and listeners to submit questions using the chat box, and this allows for more questions. Kendra will tell us a bit about the chat box and other technical features of the broadcast. Kendra, could you share how that works briefly?
Yes, so if you are joining us online, whether that be through computer or cell phone, there will be a little box. It's a conversation box, and I just sent a message in there. So go ahead and type your questions in there. We will get to the questions after all of the presentations. If you are on the phone and you would like to ask a question during the Q&A session, you have to just push the star button and number 6, and that will unmute you.
Great. Thank you, Kendra. We want to take just a moment to let everyone know that the Florida Food Policy Council relies on donations, memberships, and sponsorships for our operations. We are a chartered, not-for-profit organization dedicated to advancing the health and security of the Florida food system. Please do share support through the donation link on our website. And for information on sponsoring a future forum, see our website or contact Kendra Love. We're pleased to recognize sponsors of the Florida Food Forum, FEED and J. Haskins Law. FEED, which is F-H-E-E-D, stands for Food for Health, the Environment, Economy, and Democracy. FEED is based in Fort Lauderdale and is a consultancy dedicated to the ideals of its name. It specializes in food systems planning, GIS analysis, advocacy, and education about food systems in healthy communities. The contact for FEED is Anthony Oliveri. J. Haskins Law is located in Tampa and empowers communities with legal and risk management tools needed to exercise food sovereignty. The contact for J. Haskins Law is Jesse Haskins. We are most appreciative of FEED and J. Haskins Law for sponsoring this month's forum. For information on sponsoring future forums, see our website or contact our Operations and Communications Manager again, and that's Kendra Love. The focus of this edition of Florida Food Forum is the Florida Food Policy Council itself, with the banner for this event being Building Bridges, Bettering Florida's Food System Together. And our guests for today are the members of the Board of Directors of the Florida Food Policy Council. Very exciting. A document introducing our presenters for today is posted on the Council's website. And if you registered for the event, you've seen the introduction. For today, and in the interest of time, I will not be offering introductory backgrounds on the speakers, but letting each of my colleagues tell us about themselves and what draws them to this work. I do again call your attention to the website and to the announcement of today's forum, where you will find each of the speakers listed. Each of us will speak for 5 minutes, with Kendra keeping us on task and on time. And we'll go in this order. Starting with me, Dell, then Anthony, Rick, Jesse, Tom, Rachel, Chris, and Erica. Now you're probably saying, how can they all get in this short amount of time? Well, we've all pledged to speak for just about 5 minutes each. So we should be able to all have an opportunity to present ourselves and still have time for some questions. We might have to adjust the sequence due to the schedules of some of the board members, and we'll have Kendra notify us all of the next speaker in sequence. As host of the forum, I'll lead off. I am Dell deChant, host of the Florida Food Forum. I'm a master instructor at the University of South Florida, where I've served for 35 years. I've published over 30 articles in professional journals and encyclopedias, presented over 40 conference papers, and contributed chapters in 12 books. Most recently, an article or chapter that you might be interested in is called "Where's the Beef? Looking for Food in Religion and Ecology," which was published in a book titled The Global Food System. I research religion and contemporary culture using a theology of culture approach. I've authored 3 books. Probably the most notable one that's been picked up the most is called The Sacred Santa, The Religious Dimensions of Consumer Culture. I'm co-author with the late Daryl Fashing of a text on comparative ethics titled Comparative Religious Ethics and Narrative Approach. I'm a native Floridian. I grew up just as the state's post-war building boom was taking off, and I've lived through Florida's transformation from a largely rural, lightly settled agricultural state to one that is highly urbanized, densely populated, economically diversified, and ecologically compromised. In addition to my academic career, I've been active in my community. I served 2 terms on our city council in Newport Richey, initiating the city's first sustainability projects, mulch recycling, Tree City USA designation, recognition of Earth Day and Arbor Day, chaired the environmental committee, which was initiated here in 1990, and chartered the first community gardens in Newport Richey. I spearheaded the drive to establish the Martin Luther King Day celebration in the city, and I today continue to work for the betterment of Florida and my community, serving on the board of directors of Ecology Florida, serving on the Pasco County Food Policy Council, which I helped form, and of course, our beloved Florida Food Policy Council. In my assessment of our contemporary food system, the area in which we see the greatest distortion is the area of food sovereignty and urban agrarian, virtually overlooked in terms of policy and government action. Absent action in these areas, as a culture, we remain little more than a colony of the industrial food system. I am honored to serve on the board of the Florida Food Policy Council. I'll now turn the rest of the event over to Kendra, and she will announce each of the speakers in sequence, and I'll be back at the end of our session. Kendra?
Thank you, Dell, and welcome everyone to the forum today. We're so happy to have you all. Our next speaker is going to be our board member, Anthony Olivieri, who will talk a little bit about his projects and what he's doing to build bridges in his area.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you,
Okay.
Anthony.
Very good. Good. My name is Anthony Olivieri. I have a little bit of a Boston accent. I'm originally from Cambridge, Massachusetts. I moved here in 1997. And my areas of expertise that I serve for the Florida Food Policy Council are in community food systems, mapping of food and health disparities, land use policy and food systems analysis, and food systems education programs and workshops. Just want to show you some examples of the work that I do and that I bring to the Food Policy Council. On the map that you see off to the right is a map of diabetes in Broward County. And in this early work, we found that diabetes in Broward County overlaps almost exclusively with low-income Black communities. And those areas also overlap with an unhealthy food index that we created that was funded by the CDC. So this was my first work that I did around 2012 that catalyzed a lot of programs and policy change in my county. Most recently, I am working on a project on health disparities in COVID, and we found that in high diabetes zip codes in Broward County, COVID is 14% higher. And so this type of analysis this is the type of things that I bring to the Food Policy Council. And if you're interested in doing collaboration with us, if you're interested in health and analysis, we do have these abilities to create these types of products and this type of analysis. We also do land use policy analysis, and working with Kendra and the whole team of people across the state of Florida, we did analysis of 6 counties, and we found over 152 policies that relate to food access and food recovery. And that's a little chart down there, shows you how many policies they were in the comprehensive plans, land use development plans, master plans. And we did a whole analysis of this with a nice 50-page report, but it took like 6 months to produce. So we have a great experience throughout the council in doing policy analysis. And from that, we have good policy recommendations. The last part I've done, and the most fulfilling work I wish to go back to in COVID, is, in a place where we can interact more, is programs and program implementation. So working with partners such as the YMCA and the Broward Regional Health Planning Council and FLFPC and Broward County, I developed a program called the Good Neighbor Store Initiative. And in this program, a partner of mine, she might be actually in the call, Aurelie, who works with Urban Health Partnerships. Aurelie and I worked with the YMCA. She worked at the YMCA then. We trained high school and middle school youth to analyze the food environment in their corner stores, which we found that they were getting 50% of the calories from. And we taught them how to map that and do a presentation to their city council to advocate for policy change. And so those are the images down below, where we're performing the training on how to do the analysis. The students are actually doing the analysis. And then they created a big map of the store, like on a poster board, almost like a science presentation. And they gave this presentation to the city council. So I'm very excited for partners and others who would like to join us and do this type of work. And I am the chair of the development committee. My responsibility is to raise money. I'm not very good at it. So if you are someone who's very good at fundraising, we'll love to have you on and help fundraise so we can get these types of projects off the ground. And I yield my time. And I'll yield the screen so I can stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Anthony.
I think Kendra was shocked that I was able to talk that quickly and that short.
Thank you so much, Anthony. And for everyone who's just joined us, thank you all for joining us. We're so happy to have you with us. We just heard from Dell deChant, our policy committee chair, and Anthony Olivieri. Our next speaker is going to be Rick Hawkins, who will tell us about his experience and what he's doing in his area to build bridges.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you all for being on the call today. A little about me. First of all, I recently retired after 46 and a half years in the hotel and restaurant industry, a remarkable career. During that time, I was the director of materials management, so I was responsible for spending all the company's money. But also during that time, I led our environmental impact team, and we did amazing things to actually bring our company to the forefront of sustainability. But a lot of that involved food as well. Now, before I get into that, myself personally, even though I'm retired, I've got a small ranch where I raise beef cattle, a small flock of chickens, lots of fruits and vegetables. I've spent the better part of my life, including when I was a child, involved in the food system, and especially growing my own food, associating with other people that do food. And a big part of what I've done over the years is actually involved in the food system, especially growing food, growing sustainable food, growing organic food, and connecting growers to eaters. Now, that's a pretty simple thing, right? Not in Florida. Now, Florida is a huge agricultural state, but there's been this huge disconnect between the people that grow the food and the people that eat the food. And it's so a lot of my time has been spent trying to help that. Now, I'm a co-founder of a not-for-profit called Local Ecopia, along with Jeff Sagrins, who's the longstanding president of that organization. And our goal was to help support sustainable business operations. A big part of that was eliminating the disconnect between growers and eaters. So we worked on that for years and years. I started that in 2007. And over the years, we created Marketplace, locally appropriate Marketplace. And that was an organization that actually was a produce company with nothing but trucks and a phone and phones. And the idea was to get people to order food from farms. The Marketplace would pick it up and deliver it to the end user. So that was very successful in getting it into restaurants, but it really was a boon in the education system. So locally appropriate Marketplace was able to get a lot of big farm items to local schools, so they could actually have fresh Florida food on the plates and the trays for children. So that was a big deal. Unfortunately, COVID has decimated locally appropriate on the Marketplace because of what's happened to schools and what's happened to hotels. Obviously, you can't operate an operation like that if you don't have the customer base. But during my time at the Breakers Hotel, the most wonderful resort hotel in the world, I spent a lot of time in the food. We were able to convince chefs to let us offer local food. And a lot of that entailed, again, how to get local food there, how to teach chefs to, and I'm sorry, chefs on the call, but to plan in advance. You know what I'm talking about. So we found ways to actually make it easier for them. But one of the coolest things we did was we were able to work with small local farmers and create agreements with them that says, if you grow this for us, we guarantee we'll buy this much for you every week. So they're able to plan their crops to have a guaranteed income, and then us to know that we're going to have fresh produce delivered every week to the hotel. So that was a big, big deal for us. And we were a company of 2,200 people pre-COVID, pretty close to that now. And we were able to actually open a green market every week for our employees to offer, again, Florida food to our team members, fresh Florida food to our team members. So a private company with its own green market that was able to sell to our employees every week, supporting the farmers and giving our employees some of the best quality food they could possibly get. So we spent, my time at the Breakers was, again, I did my job, but my other hat was sustainability and the food system. And I think we made a lot of inroads. We did other things like reaching out to the Florida Cattlemen's Association. They even had an event at our hotel once, trying to promote them to actually, keep the beef in Florida. Another haul. Tom, you know a lot about that, what a challenge that is, but made some inroads there. And some of that is actually occurring in Florida, and hopefully a lot more. So there's a lot more to talk about, but I'm not going to get up all the time. So I'm going to yield my time to the next speaker, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Rick. Our next speaker is going to be Jesse Haskins, and he'll talk a little bit about what he's doing in his community to build bridges.
I'm Jesse Haskins. I'm an attorney based out of Tampa. The way I build bridges, because I have a strong passion for eating food, and that is what has really fueled my motivation. I engage both with professional organizations as an attorney, and then also with the broader food systems. And I'll try to give a few examples of both. On the attorney level, I am the year in review chair of the agricultural management section of the American Bar Association's section on environment and energy resources. So agricultural management is actually recognized as one of several different areas in resources, environmental law, energy law. That is the section of the American Bar Association, and I'm in charge of highlighting, mostly on the federal level, of all the developments that are going on in terms of agricultural policy. For example, on a regulatory level, last year, organic standards have actually become more stringent, so that there having to be a first time of mandatory unannounced visits, which I think is fairly significant. There are also interesting case developments with respect to the harms of the chemical dicamba. Those are the types of issues that get highlighted in the year in review. But I also take a lot of pride in what I've been able to do on more of a community level, working with food entrepreneurs and growers, making sure that they're in compliance with regulations and that they have the good transactional infrastructure that they need to thrive as businesses and entrepreneurs, particularly when it comes to different municipal regulations, zoning regulations, and also raising capital. There's a lot of exciting businesses that are, it's not just farms, but businesses that are trying to use local produce and have more of an emphasis on sustainability. But they need to raise capital. They seek out investors. So I've provided them with advice on that as well. There's also the issue of value adjustment boards. Also, I'm involved along with Dell, who spoke earlier, on the Ecology Florida board and the Florida Organic Growers. And finally, I've worked with Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund, mostly in North Carolina, actually, for herd share agreements, so that consumers can get direct access to dairy directly from ranchers, and for that to get processed on a much more local level. So thank you for hearing my presentation. I yield the balance of my time.
Great, thank you so much, Jesse. One moment, I will move to our next speaker, who is Tom. Tom, whenever you are ready.
All right, I'm Tom Pellizzetti. I'm the treasurer, and I have been with the council for a couple years. A lot of the folks on the council here, we all came from different places, different backgrounds, and it's great that we're getting a chance to share that with you. I came to the Food Policy Council really just kind of had to. I was working in small farm meats here in Florida, and I would just keep bumping into a lot of the energy from the Rachels and Ricks, and the Food Policy Council kind of took hold, and there was a couple different iterations, and they just really put great process together and enabled it to be open to people to come in and start participating. And then if it's something that you have a real interest in, to continue to pursue. And so it gave me the opportunity to really pursue my passions in the small farm, the local food system. My background is marketing and sales in consumer products. And then about 10 years ago, I went on my own and was doing independent sales activities, and was introduced to someone that was raising cattle in North Florida. And it became really quickly clear that there was really no way to raise cattle, process cattle, sell cattle, do all those types of activities. And so I really got this real distinct learning about the, kind of what Rick was talking about as far as Florida being a big cattle producing state, but not having the infrastructure here to really supply and stay in state. And a lot of the food is like that. And we saw, with the COVID situation, where there was a lot of food shock and scarcity and the like. So it became really clear to more and more people. And it was great because the Food Policy Council, we kind of reconvened on these calls now. We used to convene in person, and that's where, I'd run into these folks and, just really affiliate and find the passions and connect with different growers and customers. And that's where my whole point of view, or where I come in, I guess that's unique from a lot of the folks on the board, is I'm in the commercial space. And so I really try to connect the food producers and those brands, like with the distributors and the retailers. And so that's really where I maintain a lot of focus. So I'm very tied into the activities on the ground. I mean, just the small business, the big business is out there, and there's big companies doing a lot of that. But it's just real interesting to work in this small processing situation. So that's a little bit about me. And like I say, the Food Policy Council is a great way to participate and find voice and pick up on cool ideas. We do a great job like posting on social media, so there's always great posts. I typically use LinkedIn a lot, and so Kendra does a great job of putting things on there, which is great to share with professional contacts and such. So I'm looking to really, to make everything work, we need to continue, like Dell was talking about right up front, to continue to get revenue in. So we've done a lot of great team development things to improve our donations and what we're doing with the food forums and some of the other tools that we're offering. So that's an exciting part to be to see develop, is the idea of really being able to monetize and create voice to the local food people, and have an avenue for everyday folks just to kind of get in, jump in, and get into the conversation. So that's me, and appreciate your time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Tom. Our next speaker is going to be Rachel Shapiro. Rachel, whenever you are ready.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rachel, and I am the vice chair of the Food Policy Council. I live in Southeast Florida in Palm Beach County. And when I was thinking about the topic of today's presentation, building bridges, and my big project at the moment is a food hub in Fort Lauderdale. And it was fascinating to me listening to the board members speaking. There is no coincidence that the project, this food hub, kind of has grown out of all of my involvement with the Food Policy Council and the other board members over the past decade. And we're using some of the work that Anthony had done on the health and the Healthy Neighborhood Store Initiative. We're using some of the Go Slow Whoa nutrition guidelines in the food hub, and we're taking a lot of the work that Rick did with Local Ecopia and these local distribution networks, and we're planning to build on that so that we can make it even easier for small to medium-sized producers to get their food to the folks that really want to get it. So it made me laugh, actually, seeing how my skill, my superpower is kind of connecting dots, and I'm really seeing that with all the work of the council members so far. So I believe I have a little presentation. Kendra, were you going to throw that up for me? All right, so the feast, that's what we're calling our food hub in Southeast Florida. Let's flip to the next slide. And the whole project is about building bridges and solving challenges within the food system. And we know that the food system is a multifaceted animal. Some of the problems that we were looking at in this particular neighborhood are an uncertain job market coupled with the high failure rate of food-related businesses, 90% of restaurants fail in the first 3 years. Also with COVID, you know, we have a whole new landscape as far as food and food production and delivery. The Cis-Trunk corridor is on and off. It's been recognized as a food desert. You know, a new supermarket just opened up, so hopefully they'll stick around and it's no longer classified. But the point being is there's a very big lack of fresh foods available in a 1 mile radius. The life expectancy of this zip code is 10.5 years less than the neighboring zip code. And you're 300% less likely to find a healthy food item on the shelves. And there's definitely a correlation, as Anthony's research can tell us. The third problem that we are looking to address is a lack of job skills training programs and entrepreneurship opportunities for residents of the 33311 zip code. Another upshot of this experience we've all had in the last 10 months of the pandemic is people are losing jobs left, right, and center. And so when we encourage entrepreneurship and we encourage this focus on services being offered, we are actually offering people another option as far as revenue generating activity. So our solution is a shared use kitchen, a commercial kitchen. So we're going to have 4 hot cooking stations, 4 cold prep stations. We've got walk-in fridges and freezers. We've got a demo studio that's going to be rigged for video and photo shots. So if you have a culinary idea and you want to take it to the masses, we'll be able to take care of you. The food hall has 10 individual kiosks that range in size from about 90 square feet to about 175. And the idea is it's expensive to build out a restaurant. So what we've done with the shared use kitchen is we're providing a co-working space for all of these culinary entrepreneurs to get going off the ground at lower costs. I want to be responsible for the time, so go ahead to the next slide, Kendra, and that would be why us, I believe. And this is where some of those bridges come in, is the small, you know, what we're doing is bridging these small to medium-sized urban producers with a demand in all these chefs coming to the food hall and to the shared use kitchen. There's now this demand for locally grown produce. We also have sourcing guidelines, and we're creating buying clubs for our vendors and our professionals so that we can lower the costs for our chefs, and we can also support these farms, like Rick was saying, you know, setting up agreements with local farmers so that we buy their produce and they have a dependable market. Another bridge that I think is really important, I want to focus on, go to the next slide, please, with the company overview. I've registered the corporation as a Florida benefit corporation, and I did that on purpose because the bridge that we're particularly building here is a bridge between basically doing well and doing good. I believe that they are inseparable. And so I felt it was really important that we demonstrate that we can make money and earn a profit and still respect the people and the planet that we interact with. And so that's the food hub. Let's finish the slides for now, Kendra, because I'm over my time and I don't want to take too much time, but I do just want to finish up with some of the other bridges that I build are with the members of the council. I'm on the governance committee, and I'm the vice chair. And so what we really, our goal with this Food Policy Council was bringing together all these amazing people from around the state, all of you included, by the way, everyone on the phone, and bridging the gaps between our work. We are not silos. A lot of us are working on complementary projects and activities. And so bridging those gaps between all of us are where the Food Policy Council really shines. And that's probably the biggest bridge that I've been focused on in the last 5 years. So thank you so much for joining us. And I won't yield my time because I don't have any to yield, but I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel, and thanks again, everyone, for joining us. I'm just gonna scroll through the other slides so we can go on to our next speaker, which will be Christopher Johns.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. As Kendra said, my name's Chris Johns, and I've been on the council for a couple years, and I come from a very kind of traditional farming background. My family owns a commercial farm in Northeast Florida, in Hastings, and for most of my life, we grew potatoes and some other vegetables along the way, like cabbage and onions. But in recent years, we've shifted to growing primarily sod and also citrus, some citrus and some cattle too, actually. I am no longer with my family's farm, but I helped manage it for a number of years. And in that time, I decided to go to law school and become an attorney. And my main interest was environmental law, and primarily that the catalyst for that was seeing a lot of the environmental issues that intersected with farming. And they're very complex issues, and often I would notice that the kind of different stakeholders in the groups, and the people who are concerned about environmental and natural resources, the farmers, and then, environmental nonprofits and folks like that, and then, people in the communities often didn't really seem to understand each other or where they're coming from. And so I've kind of, I kind of see both worlds. And so that's why I went to law school. While I was in law school, I had a chance to intern with the Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic, and that opened my eyes to the world of food policy. And up until that point, I'd always thought of food as just kind of primarily agricultural centric, and the growers and the producers, they're the main component. But when I was introduced to the concept of food systems, that helped me understand the broader context in which agriculture sits. So there's production and distribution and consumption and waste, and that was a framework that it allowed me to see potential issues with food systems and feeding people that I hadn't really seen before. At least I hadn't seen them from that perspective. And so that was where my interest in food policy began. And then a few years back, Rachel convinced me to join the board, and so now I'm working on two projects that really interest me, that relate to food systems. The first is the Florida Food Policy Toolkit, and that is essentially it's going to be several things, but first and foremost, it's going to be an introduction to and an overview of the legal system and the legal and regulatory framework in Florida as it intersects with food systems. So it is going to explain, or it does explain, essentially like what the relationship between Florida's Constitution, its statutes, its regulations are. What are they each? How are they different? And how are they related? Things like that. And then it'll also explain, what are the regulatory agencies that, produce various regulations that impact food systems, and how do you interact with them, and how do they make rules, and how can you affect those rules? And then in addition to that, the kind of second half of it, so to speak, will be essentially a compendium almost of information for people who are involved in food systems, various components of food systems in Florida. So, we've got it essentially divided into sections based on each of the components of the food system. So there will be a section on production, there will be a section on, distribution, and then we've included an additional section, which is kind of a primer, and that's dedicated specifically to community food assessments. And so that's a good example for me to talk about, because for people that don't know, a community food assessment is a process for evaluating the food systems in a particular geographic location. So you can be very small, like your town, your neighborhood, or it can be very big, like a whole region, like South Florida. And, depending upon how you structure that, it can tell you a lot about, essentially the food systems in your area, and then help you identify, potential issues, and hopefully figure out ways to strengthen the food systems and, help get increased access to people that might not have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, like Rachel was talking about, and things like that. And so what we've done is we've gone through and found with the help of some very talented and dedicated assistants, they've compiled all the community food assessments that have been done in the state of Florida, or nearly all of them. And we're building a database that includes them, and we've included, a lot of helpful information, such as who did it, a link to what was the result, and hopefully we're going to get some interviews with people to explain, where they explain how they went through the process and what they learned, and potential pitfalls to avoid, to help people in the future who want to do a community food assessment for their community, help them to do, understand how to do that and to do a good, effective job. And, and in fact, that's something, hopefully we can position ourselves to as a good resource for folks to come and, ask questions, and then we can help facilitate those types of processes. The other big thing that I'm just starting, and we're not nearly as far along yet on, but has to do with urban agriculture. And urban agriculture is really neat, especially now. There's technology developing that's allowing more and more sophisticated urban grow operations. So basically, generally speaking, protected agriculture, like greenhouses and things like that, but like in way cooler applications, like on top of buildings and on indoors. And as cool of technology as it is, there's, it's new, and the current legal and regulatory framework in Florida is kind of at odds with allowing or facilitating the proliferation of urban agricultural operations. And not to get too far in the details, but certain zoning laws and things like that can prevent folks that want to start an urban farm or indoor grow operation, for produce or leafy greens or anything like that. That can actually be prohibited based on local land use laws. And there's a tension between, at the same time, there's a tension between traditional agriculture, the kind of open fields like we think that happens in rural areas, and this new urban agriculture, because there are certain protections, very valid legal protections in the state of Florida that are aimed at making sure that farms don't get swallowed up by cities as they expand. And so I'm working with a group of people to do essentially a policy white paper exploring ways to allow urban agriculture and to proliferate and flourish without, harming these protections that are, established for traditional agriculture. And my background from a commercial farming family really gives me a lot of insight into what farmers' concerns are, from a and how we can best protect the their legal protections, I guess, to be redundant, while still creating effective policy that will remove impediments to urban agriculture. So that was a lot of words. I'll probably stop right there, but there's two things basically I'm working on: Toolkit and urban agriculture policy white paper. So, and I won't be able to stick around. This is my last day in Alaska, and I'm an amateur photographer. And so I'm gonna head out. I've got to head out into the Alaska wilderness one more time, and before I come back. But I will happily answer questions later if anyone has any for me. I'm sure I'm happy to send it out. However we proliferate those things.
Great, Chris. We'll round those questions up and we will get them over to you. Have a wonderful time photoing in Alaska. We want to make sure we get to Erica Hall, who is our chair and has a lot to share as far as the bridges that she's been building. So thank you so much, Erica. Dun. Drum roll.
Thank you, Rachel. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erica Hall. I'm the chair of the council, and it's been a full 3 months in my role now as board chair and 4.5 months previously as a board member. So I just had a few, if you would give me a few moments just to briefly talk about the way I build bridges as the chair and then also in my individual communities. In my role, I've spent the last 3 months meeting with stakeholders, members, potential partners, collaborators throughout the state of Florida, both regionally and on the national policy level. And in light of the pandemic and racial and social injustice, I found that more than ever, there is a connection with the groups that I've been speaking with in our work, and that our work is intersectional. So a key word that has come up in this space is intersectionality. So if I could just take a quick minute to discuss it, because it was a word that I had heard, but that I wasn't familiar with how it fits into the space and the work that we're doing. So quickly, intersectionality is an analytical framework for understanding how aspects of a person's social and political identities combine to create different modes of discrimination and privilege. Examples of these aspects, as you can all see, I won't go through them all, but the keys for me were gender, sex, race, class, and you can read the others. So when it comes to the way food is distributed, this framework attempts to restructure the ways in which food is distributed, consumed, and produced, impacting the social, racial, cultural, political, economic, and environmental dimensions of food. So for me, my work right now, a racial and social equity lens should be used in every aspect of each intersection of this work. Intersectionality centers social justice from various social locations. And what we found is without the input or understanding of resistance from the people whose experiences or injustices we seek to alleviate, we risk reproducing these same structures that reinforce oppression through different means. So I just wanted to take a minute to kind of explain what intersectionality is, and I'll get into how the council is using our work to build bridges and to look at intersectionality. Next slide, please. And again, it underscores the need for collaboration and partnerships. So Jedi, what is Jedi? That's a term that I've come up with, and it's a symbolic. If you're a Star Wars head or a geek, you know what the Jedi, the eye that's always looking and always knowing. So conversations around what I call justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Again, Jedi have to take place in safe places to facilitate change, and that's what the council strives to do, create these safe places. It starts with leadership, including ours. Our council, in conjunction with our strategic planning process, will be engaging in Jedi courses and learning. And eventually, Rachel and I hope to become trained as facilitators in Jedi in order to provide that to our members and our council. My conversations have summed up for me that the world needs a food system that delivers healthy, safe, and nutritious foods to everyone, everywhere, and ensures a decent income for farmers and food workers, tackles climate change, and protects nature while building a community of practice, all while working through a Jedi lens. So that's what I've gathered from my discussions with people. Next slide, please, Kendra. So briefly, I'll just briefly touch on some of the collaborations and tie in how each board member that I work with, how we created this intersectionality of our work. So I work with the Sierra Club Suncoast Group. I'm the vice chair, and we work on the connection between climate change, food waste, food justice, environmental justice, and JEDI. I was recently appointed by FDACS, Nikki Fried's office, to the Food Security Advisory Committee, which is a core group of collaborative cross-sector thought leaders around the state. So we'll work together to create a statewide plan for addressing food security. So if anybody on the call, any board members, anyone has comments that they would like me to articulate to FDACS and to Nikki Fried, please feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll follow up, and we'll also send out a link to see who has questions. We will be partnering with FDACS and other groups to create GI story maps throughout the state, highlighting social, racial, and health disparities and inequities. This is a project that I'm working on with Anthony, who presented previously. He's our resident GIS expert. So I'm very excited for the work that he and I are doing on behalf of the board and in conjunction with the board to bring this project to our members. Thank you. Next slide, please, Kendra. Moving on, I work with NAFSN and their professional development association that is retooling the way that they provide professional development opportunities to people doing this food systems work. Education is key, and also providing certifications for people doing this work. There's not a lot of money involved. There's not a lot of benefits. So if we can get certifications for our interns, volunteers, members, and people that help us do this research and do this work, that's something we can look into. I'm helping the Congress for New Urbanism implement a JEDI lens into their summit, which focuses on human scale urban design, transportation, the built environment, and urban planning, and how racial equity and justice fits into that. Yesterday, I presented with the Indian River Food Policy Council. They may be on the call to their stakeholders on the need for and the expansion of their Food Policy Council. That's an example of how we provide technical support and service to our members. I'm working with a group of very smart people, young people that they may be on the phone, that's helping me to develop expressions of interest to contribute to a textbook for undergraduate studies around food studies, matter, meaning, and movement. So that's a project I'm excited to be a part of. I recently became a member of the League of Women Voters here in St. Pete, the Food Policy Action Team. So again, that's a way that we collaborate and partner with our members. Next slide. And last slide. So what are the next steps? Intersectionality, the word I previously mentioned, is about collaboration. Partnerships are key, and funding. Developing these partnerships help you in your funding. Capacity building will help you in your collaborations and relationships. So how do you create change? Who do you know? It's, again, your partnerships, your collaborators, your friendships, your professional and personal relationships. With me, it's mine with the council. They're my sphere. They're my circle, as well as the other collaborators and people that I connect with on a regular basis. So think about who your sphere is. It may be larger and more significant than you realize. In-kind and financial support is critical to any sustainability and success of your project and in your work. Become leaders in your community. Educate and advocate for yourself and others. Join groups like ours, the Florida Food Policy Council. Speak to us. Let us know. How can we help you reach your goals? And finally, are there ways for us to collaborate and partner? You've heard our incredible team, Tom, Anthony, Rachel, Dell, Chris, Jesse, anyone I may have missed, and of course, Kendra. We're all out here developing relationships on behalf of our members, and just to make the food systems a better place. So reach out to all of us, ask us questions, connect with us, let us know how we can best serve you. And with that, I'll yield my time back. Again, thank you all for your time today, and please let us know how we can be of service.
Okay, well, wonderful. I think we're all applauding your presentation, Erica, and certainly all of us on the board of directors appreciate your great leadership. We really don't have much time left, but I do commend all of us on the board for really doing as good a job as we possibly could in the time that we had, and extremely informative, I think, those that are listening. I have just seen the chat boxes lighting up dramatically, and it looks like we have about 3 minutes left. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a call that we won't be able to take any questions, only in the interest of time. But what I do want to note, especially is, and underscore what Erica said, is that Florida Food Policy Council is here for you. We are servants of the state. We work for you. We work for citizens. We work for individuals who are interested in trying to make a difference. Please do consider joining. I want to turn it over to Kendra for just a moment to tell us about our next month's event. Kendra, if you're good for just a minute, and then give me back 2 minutes at the very end, please.
Thank you, Dell, and thank you to all of our speakers today. It's an honor to work with all of you, and thank you all for being on the call today. We will have our next Florida Food Forum the last Friday of February. That will be on February 26th at the same time from 12 to 1 p.m. And our forum in February is going to be on Florida food festivals. So we will have John Solomon, who is the president of the Florida Seafood Festival, as one of our guest presenters, and our own Dell deChant, who also is an organizer of the Florida Loquat Festival. So they will both be presenting on our February forum. The information is already up on Eventbrite, and it will be posted on Facebook later today. If we didn't get around to any of your questions, please reach out to us. The email is info@flfpc.org. We will have a recording of this forum posted by Monday.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, Kendra, and thank you all. And of course, I do want to acknowledge Kendra Love's work. We would not be able to be doing these forums or much of the good outreach work of Florida Food Policy Council without the inspired leadership and work of Kendra Love. Your support and sponsorship of this event, as well as the Florida Food Policy Council, is tremendously appreciated. Please do contact Kendra if you're interested in sharing support with us and sponsoring one of our events. For today, we thank again our sponsors of the Florida Food Forum, Feed and J. Haskins Law. To both of these wonderful organizations, we share our sincere appreciation, and we share our sincere appreciation for all of you who are interested in our work, who are supporting us and telling others about what's happening with the Florida Food Policy Council. Thank you all. Thanks for joining us, and see you again next month. Bye now.